Welcome to Military History Inside Out, covering wars and battles from across the globe and across the ages. Today's episode is a dramatized performance based on a historic battle.
Warning. This episode contains descriptions of violence and expressions of bigotry which may be disturbing. This language is used to educate listeners about attitudes and biases of the period so that they may better understand the events. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you, and enjoy.
Today's battle, the Battle of Fort Cumberland, November 10 to 29, 1776. First point of view, introduction and chronology of events, the United States. The Patriot's Dispatch. Source, Committee of Safety, Massachusetts Provincial Congress. Speaker, Militia Captain or Courier. Location, Machias, District of Maine. Relayed from the front. Urgent communique, the liberation of Nova Scotia. Attention, Sons of Liberty and Patriots of the Eastern Districts. Hear ye, the fires of revolution have spread north. We bring news from the brave Colonel Jonathan Eddy, who fights at this very hour to liberate our brethren in Nova Scotia and bring the 14th colony into our glorious Union. The time has come to strike a blow against the tyrant George and drive his mercenaries from the shores of the Bay of Fundy. The objective is the formidable Fort Cumberland. It is the shackle that binds Nova Scotia to the British yoke. Though heavily fortified and garrisoned by the Royal Fencible Americans, the fort is surrounded by a populace that yearns for freedom. Our friends, the Acadians, and the settlers from New England, who chafe under martial law. Colonel Eddy, leading a brave volunteer force of Massachusetts men, Milicete warriors, and local patriots, has laid siege to this bastion of tyranny. We must speak plainly of the hardships our boys face. They possess no heavy cannon to batter down the stone and timber walls. They rely on the providence of the musket and the courage of their hearts. The terrain is against them. The Tantramar marshes are a desolate expanse of mud and icy water, offering no shelter from the piercing Atlantic winds. The days are short, and the sun offers little warmth. Our strategy relies on the darkness. Under the cloak of the long November nights, our forces move like ghosts, cutting communications and striking terror into the hearts of the garrison. The weather is our ally and our enemy. The fog allows us to approach unseen, but the freezing rain saps the strength of men sleeping in the open fields without tents.
The political stakes could not be higher. If Cumberland falls, all of Nova Scotia lies open to us. We fight not just for a fort, but for the soul of the continent. Prepare yourselves for news of a great struggle.
Chronicle of Events, the attack on Fort Cumberland. As recorded by the clerk of the volunteer force. Week of the gathering, November 4 through 9. November 5, 1776, dusk. The muster. Men are gathering at Sackville. The local settlers are bringing powder and shot. The spirit of liberty is high. November 8, 1776, nightfall. Closing the net. We have successfully blocked the roads leading to the fort. The British are blind to our numbers. The assault days, November 10 through 14. November 10, 1776, morning, critical event. The demand. Colonel Eddy bravely marches to the fort gates. He delivers a summons to Lieutenant Colonel Gorham, demanding the fort's surrender to the United States. The arrogant British commander refuses. The siege begins. November 12, 1776, midnight. Critical event. Capture of the sloop. Our boys spot the supply sloop, Polly, stuck in the mud. 30 volunteers storm the ship. We have captured supplies and prisoners right under the noses of the cannon. November 13, 1776, 0300 hours.
Critical event. Testing the lines. We launch a raid on the western ramparts. The enemy fire is heavy, but we have proven we can reach the walls. November 13, evening. The fires of liberty. To force the enemy's hand, we set torch to the buildings adjacent to the fort. The guardhouse goes up in flames, signaling to the countryside that the battle is joined. November 14, 0200 hours. The escalade. We move the ladders forward. The mud sucks at our boots. November 14, 0330 hours. Critical event. The repulse. We attempt to scale the walls near the curtain. The ladders are too short. The British pour fire down upon us. Brave men are wounded. We are forced to pull back to the woods to regroup. November 14, dawn. Regrouping. We have failed to take the wall, but we maintain the blockade. The waiting weeks. November 15 through 26. November 16, 1776, 800 hours. Council of War. Colonel Eddy meets with the officers. We lack artillery. We must starve them out or wait for them to make a mistake. November 25, noon. Supplies low. Food is running scarce in our camp. The locals are helping, but the winter is harsh. We maintain our vigil. The betrayal of fortune. November 27 to 29. November 27, morning. Critical event. The enemy ship. A man of war, the Albion, enters the basin. They bring Marines. The odds have turned against us. November 28th, afternoon. Positions compromised. The arrival of fresh British troops means we can no longer hold the tight siege. We prepare for a defensive stand. November 29, dawn. Critical event. The British charge. They spill out of the fort in great numbers. Fresh troops against our weary, frozen volunteers. November 29, 0700 hours. Critical event. The retreat. We are outflanked at Camp Hill. To stay is suicide. Colonel Eddy gives the order to disperse and retreat toward the St. John River. November 29, dusk. The dream delayed. We burn the houses of those loyal to us to prevent British reprisals, though it breaks our hearts. We retreat through the snow. The invasion is halted, but the spirit of resistance lives on.
Second point of view, Great Britain.
The Crown's Dispatch. Source: Garrison Command, His Majesty's Royal Fencible Americans. Speaker: Town Crier or Regimental Adjutant. Location: Fort Edward, Nova Scotia. Relayed from Cumberland. Urgent proclamation: the situation at Chignecto. Oyez! Oyez! Attention all loyal subjects of His Majesty King George III! Be it known that a state of insurrection now threatens the Northern Territories. The unnatural and horrid rebellion birthed in the southern colonies of Massachusetts and New York has stretched its treacherous hand toward our loyal province of Nova Scotia. We have received dire intelligence confirming that the traitor, Jonathan Eddy, a man of no honor and a fugitive from justice, has roused a rabble of disaffected settlers, Acadians, and natives to take up arms against the Crown. The focus of this treasonous enterprise is Fort Cumberland, formerly known as Beausejour, the very key to the Isthmus of Chignecto. This star fort, though currently under repair and commanded by the staunch Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Gorham of the Royal Fencible Americans, stands as the only barrier preventing these banditti from sweeping into the peninsula and threatening Halifax itself. The political consequence is dire. Should Cumberland fall, the illusion of a 14th colony joining the rebellion may become a wretched reality, severing our communication by land with the Canadas. The military situation is precarious. Colonel Gorham's garrison is outnumbered, composed of fencibles and a handful of loyal militia. The enemy approaches not as a disciplined army, but as shadows in the mist, utilizing the cover of the dense woods and the treachery of local sympathizers to cut our supply lines. The conditions for the coming conflict are miserable in the extreme. It is November on the Tantramar marshes. The ground is a quagmire of half-frozen mud and tidal sludge, making the movement of heavy guns impossible for the rebels, yet offering them ample places of concealment in the tall marsh grass. The winds bite with the frost of the approaching winter, and the skies are heavy with leaden clouds, promising snow and rain. We expect the enemy to strike under the cloak of night. The moon is waning, and the nights are long and pitch black, favoring their cowardly tactics of ambush rather than open, honorable field combat. The terrain surrounding the fort is rugged and broken, allowing men to creep close to the glacis unseen. However, let the rebels know this: the walls of Cumberland are high, our powder is dry, and the resolve of His Majesty's troops is iron. We shall hold the isthmus, or die in its defense. God save the King!
Chronicle of Events, the Defense of Fort Cumberland, as recorded by the Adjutant of the Royal Fencible Americans. Week of the Incitement, November 1 to 9. November 4, 1776, 0900 hours. Intelligence received. Scouts report that the traitor Eddy has gathered a force at Shepparty. They are moving to seize the crossroads. November 7, 1776, 1400 hours. Perimeter breach. A boat bearing supplies from the fort to a local outpost is intercepted by rebel whaleboats. The countryside is now infested with insurgents. The main assault, November 10 to 14. November 10, 1776, 1000 hours, critical event, the insolent summons. A flag of truce appears at the gate. The rebel leader Jonathan Eddy demands we surrender the fort to the United Colonies. Lieutenant Colonel Gorham, displaying proper British resolve, refuses to treat with rebels and warns them of the consequences of treason. November 11, 1776, dusk. Defensive preparations. The garrison stands to. Palisades are reinforced. We have spotted enemy movement near the outlying farms. November 12, 1776, 2300 hours. The cutting out. Under cover of absolute darkness, rebels board our sloop, the Polly, stranded by the low tide in the Olac River. They have seized the vessel, but our cannons prevent them from utilizing it effectively. November 13, 1776, 0400 hours. Critical event. First assault. The rebels launch a probing attack on the outer works. Our sentries fire muskets into the darkness. The enemy, lacking discipline, retreats into the gloom after a brief exchange. November 13, 1776, 1500 hours. Scorched earth. To deny the enemy cover, Colonel Gorham orders the burning of several structures outside the fort walls that were shielding rebel sharpshooters. November 13, 1776, 2000 hours. The night terrors. Rebels set fire to the outlying guardhouse. The blaze illuminates the night, casting long, dancing shadows against the fort walls. The men are on high alert. The smoke is thick and choking. November 14, 1776, 0300 hours. Critical event. The grand assault. The rebels attempt to storm the bastions. They lack scaling ladders of sufficient height. Major Bat rallies the fencibles. Amid the shouting and confusion in the pitch black, only illuminated by muzzle flashes, we repel the boarders. November 14, 1776, 0500 hours. The retreat. The sun rises over a bloody scene. The rebels have fallen back, having failed to breach the main defenses. Our casualties are light. The siege weeks, November 15 to 26. November 17, 1776, 1200 hours. The blockade. The rebels have cut the road to Halifax. We are isolated. Rations are being conserved. November 22, 1776, 0900 hours. Desultory fire. Rebel marksmen take potshots at the walls from the tree line. They possess no siege artillery, rendering their blockade an annoyance rather than a mortal threat. The relief and rout. November 27 to 29. November 27, 1776, 0800 hours. Critical event. Sails on the horizon. The HMS Albion is sighted in the basin. She brings a detachment of Royal Marines and the Royal Highland emigrants. The garrison cheers. November 28, 1776, 1000 hours. Reinforcements land. Major Studholme lands his forces. The balance of power has shifted. November 29, 1776, 05:30 hours. The sortie. Colonel Gorham orders the offensive. Major Batt leads a mixed force of fencibles and marines out of the gates. 0700 hours. The rout. We catch the rebels in their camp at Camp Hill. They are asleep and unprepared. The action is swift and decisive. The rebels break and run into the woods, leaving their arms and stolen plunder behind. 1200 hours. Victory declared. The siege is lifted. The rebellion in Chignecto is crushed. The king's peace is restored.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Military History Inside Out. Today's episode has been a dramatized performance based on historical events. Listeners are encouraged to research the precise details of the event covered. We welcome all comments, questions, corrections, or criticism of the episode on any of our social media links. On Instagram at Chris Alvarez War Scholar, on X at War Scholar, on Facebook at warscholar.org, and on Reddit at MHIO Podcast. You can also suggest battles that you would like to hear on the podcast. Visit warscholar.org for more social media and Discord community links. Please check back regularly for more episodes and provide likes where you can to support continued production of these episodes. Thank you for listening.